everyone, this is Sonila from MediterraneanLatinLoveAffair.com. I am an Albanian food blogger based in Florida. I love to cook foods that reminds me of my childhood. And this dish is a leeks and cornmeal casserole with feta cheese. In my country, it's called Pispili Presh. So it's basically a savory pie dish. You can cut it in squares and serve it for meals. It's meatless. This one, it's a very regional dish in Albania. Like my grandparents made it a little bit differently. They mostly made it with spinach and they called it shapkat. My grandparents were from the city of Gjirokastra, so their version of the cornmeal casserole included making layers of the dough of cornmeal and then putting the filling with spinach and feta cheese in the middle. I have that recipe in my blog if anybody is interested. And differently, my neighbors who are from city of Korcha, they made this version that I'm showing you in the video, and they called it pispili. So basically they don't put layers of the cornmeal, they put it all together and mix it, and they bake it like you would bake a quiche, for example. But either way, whichever version of this dish you prefer, it's a delicious dish. It's inexpensive, it's meatless, it's great for weeknight meals, it's comforting. So I hope to show you how I quickly make mine, obviously with some adjustments, since the food that I find here in Florida is not exactly the same as the one I used back in Albania. So I start with 3 leeks. They are on the huge side. You have to wash them really, really, really well because they tend to have impurities between the leaves. So basically, I chop off the head, the tail, wash it really well, and then once you start dicing or chopping it finer, you might have to wash the tail part to rinse it one more time. And then I add the leeks in cold water. I put a deep skillet with olive oil on the stove top, and I saute the leeks after I have drained them with salt and pepper just until they're softened. Then I start whisking 3 eggs. Once I whisk the eggs, then I add warm milk to the eggs, not hot, just warm, maybe like even room temperature is fine. Then I add 1 cup of yellow cornmeal, 3/4 cup of white cornmeal. You have to pick the fine variety of cornmeal. There are different brands. Then I add baking soda and mix it again, and then I add 3 tablespoons of olive oil and mix it to incorporate or whisk it, and then add the sauteed leeks. I usually like to leave them on the side for a little bit so they can cool off. They can be warm or hot, but not just out of the stove top. Add a little bit more salt, and then I crumble like a block of feta cheese. It's about 2-3 ounces of feta cheese that you just crumble with a fork and add it to the mix. I leave a little bit of feta cheese for at the end because I'll sprinkle it on top. Then mix all this together, and then I'll pour it on a baking dish that has parchment paper on top. The reason for the parchment paper is that once you'll cut it in squares, you don't want to create like cut lines on the baking dish itself. So the parchment paper will protect your baking dish. Use a spatula to spread the mix all over so it's evenly distributed. Then I crumble the remaining feta cheese on top. It makes for a great topping for the casserole. You don't need to add a lot, just dot it all over the casserole. And then I add a couple of slices or tablespoons of butter, and then a little bit of cornmeal. You can use a strainer just to add a little bit of yellow cornmeal on top. It helps when the whole casserole bakes and it gives it a beautiful look on top. And I bake it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 35 minutes. The baking time might vary depending on the type of oven you're using and how deep your baking dish is, so make sure to just observe it until it becomes golden brown. I love those small pieces of feta cheese that are on top of the casserole. Like even when I was little, I used to try to remove them, and then my mom would be like, "We can't eat this before it's served," you know. But like I love picking on it, and it's delicious. Those pieces of feta cheese on top are great. And this is how the casserole looked sliced. This is the version where everything gets mixed together and baked together. And I serve it usually with a salad and yogurt. That's how my family used to serve it, but you can have it as with different side dishes of your choice. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you have any questions, let me know in comments.